This is Beyond the Politician, number 2, Tara Carr. All right, Samantha.
Could you explain a little bit about who you are and your job?
Sure. Who am I? That's a good question. These days I have a lot of time trying to figure that out. Let's see. My name is Tara Carr. I am from Connecticut. I was born in Danbury and raised here in Brookfield. I went to Brookfield High School my freshman year, and then I went to New Milford High School. My junior year of high school, you may or may not know, I went to Brazil as an exchange student with the Rotary International. The furthest away from Connecticut I had ever been was Florida one time, and then at 15 years old I found myself in a foreign country, and that really set the stage for the rest of my life. It just opened up my aperture for what the world had to offer and different cultures and languages, and I fell in love with the world. And someone had mentioned to me my senior year at New Milford High School that the military has a language school in Monterey, California. So I thought I wanted to continue my studies in Portuguese, and I said, yeah, sign me up. You had to join the Army in order to go to the language school. It's the most beautiful campus in the country, in my opinion. If you get the chance, look it up. And they told me, well, you can come, but you can't study Portuguese. You can study Chinese, Arabic, or Russian at the time. And that was in 1995. So I held my right hand to God and swore my faith to the Constitution of the United States. And before I knew it, off I went to basic training. I had to wait until my 18th birthday to go to boot camp. And the rest is history. I'm a mother of 4 children. My oldest is 16, my youngest is 10. My husband and I met in the military. We actually met in Italy. He was a career military police officer out of West Point, and we've been married for 20 years. I retired on my last duty assignment from Hawaii. Don't ask me why we came back to Brookfield from Hawaii, but we did. And that was January of 2020, right before COVID happened. The impetus for moving back to Brookfield was because I was raised here, had a great upbringing. We needed a place to raise our 4 children and call home. My father was ill at the time, so it kind of sped up the process for me retiring from Hawaii. And then COVID happened in that March. So I had aspirations of going into Manhattan and working at the UN. For the last 15 years of my military career, I spent as a China Foreign Area Officer, which is a soldier statesman as part of the State Department. And because I speak Chinese, I've lived and served in China and Taiwan, specifically Mongolia, Hong Kong. I really thought that I wanted to keep my finger on the pulse of everything that had to do with China and East Asia. So I thought it'd be a good transition to go from the Army to the UN. And then flash forward, COVID came and none of that came to fruition, which sometimes in life, as you will learn, or maybe you already have experienced that, sometimes things that don't happen end up being blessings themselves, because at this stage of my life, I would not want to be commuting to Manhattan every day. And in the interim, I was able to do other things. In August of 2020, I applied to and was hired as the Director of Operations for the brand new Amazon facility, Amazon Logistics Warehouse in Danbury. And I launched that facility, and shortly thereafter decided being in a warehouse was not for me. And that's when I decided to stick my neck out for politics. And I had never aspired to politics at all. I just, having moved back to Brookfield and taking a close look around, having small school-aged children, I realized that this town needed a lot of help, and I felt that I was best suited to do that. And that's when I decided to run for political office.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of a long introduction.
No, it was good, I liked it. It's awesome. All right, so back to the military. What inspired your strong involvement in the military?
So as I said, I had studied abroad to Brazil and learned Portuguese, and that kind of set the stage for, oh, there's a world out there and there's other things I can do. And I'm the youngest of 4 children. My parents, none of my siblings went to college. My father was in construction his entire life. He had only gone to school until the 7th grade. So I wasn't even really sure that college was for me. I believe in lifelong learning. I'm just not sold that college is for everybody. I don't think that you have to go to college to be successful or to be a good person or to give back to communities or be a contributing member of society. I think everyone has their own journey. So my journey led me to the Army, and I'm really grateful for that. My senior year of high school at New Milford, I lost my very best friend in a car accident. So that kind of solidified the fact that I just wasn't ready for college, because after she passed in September of our senior year, I kind of lost all interest in high school. So.
I'm sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, on a similar note, how have your experiences in the military shaped who you are today?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
I know.
I mean, I was in uniform for 25 years, so I think oftentimes, first of all, I should say the Army is like this salad bowl of all walks of life and people from all over the world, really. I mean, you don't just have to be from America to be in the military. You may or may not know that there's people who've entered the military who the military actually helps obtain their citizenship through the process. So you don't have to be born American to be in the United States Armed Services. So again, the military is really this melting pot of all different kinds of people, and you just meet the most amazing people I could ever even begin to explain. It's like, have you ever been to the DMV?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh,
You go and you sit down and like there's just all sorts of people, right? That's what it is. But the cool thing about the military is everyone's there for the same mission, right? Like you're all in the same uniform. You all carry that pride for the United States of America. You may not, how do I say, like some people join for educational benefits, like you can get money for college, or some people are like just true patriots, or some people dreamed of nothing other than being an infantryman and going to war. Some people, are interested now in the Space Force. Like there's just, everyone has the kind of their own reason, but at the end of the day, you're there for the same reason. And that, I think, is the love of the United States of America. And it says it right over your heart, everyone's badge, no matter which service you're in, Air Force, Army, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, what have you. It says U.S. Army or U.S. Air Force, whatever service you're in, right over your heart. What was the question again?
Oh, go back to that.
Am I boring you all to tears?
No, it's very,
Putting
very
you
interesting.
guys to sleep?
How have your experiences in the military shaped who you are today?
Right. So going back to that melting pot, this just eclectic mix of just wonderful people. At the end of the day, everyone becomes an American, whether you join to get your citizenship or not. It's that camaraderie, and there is nothing greater than knowing that the person to the left or the right of you will risk their life for yours. That trust, that bond, that's something that you will not find in any other walk of life. So that really shaped who I was from the onset. The second you go to boot camp and you take a look around and realize everyone's here for the same reason, and oh, by the way, we're all going into that gas chamber together, it just, it's an experience of a lifetime that you won't find anywhere else.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who has number 4?
I think you've already started to talk about this, but what do you say you value the most, and why do you value it?
What do I value the most? Well, for me, it's always been my faith in God. He's number one, always and forever. Family is a close second, but still a very far from the maker. And then, friends, health obviously is very important. So those 4 things, that's what makes a good life. That's what I value.
Nice. All right, number 5.
All right. Among the many cultures you have immersed yourself in, is there anyone in particular that has influenced your life and career?
There have been a lot of people who've influenced my life and my career, and I'd have to say it's been at different stages. early on, of course, it was probably my parents, some friends who had gone into the military before me that ended up, introducing me to what the opportunities that there were. And then when I joined the military, of course, leadership. And as I became a leader, I was enlisted first. I was a private, and then I went to Syracuse University for an ROTC scholarship, so I became a second lieutenant. And when you become an officer, it's a totally different leadership experience. You're on a different level. So at that stage, it was professors at university. I studied abroad in Hong Kong while I was at Syracuse, so professors overseas, and then cadre in the military. And then I'd say as I got promoted through the ranks and grew older, there were other different influences, probably my husband, of course, my siblings, as they started their own families. And then I think as I got older and came home back to Brookfield, retired out of the military, I think older generations, I have very close connections with a lot of senior citizens nowadays, and I really covet and enjoy my time with them because the older folks are just wise. They've been there, they've done it, they've lived it. I really like being around old people.
You had early mentioned that like COVID had really influenced the direction that your career went because it kind of blocked your desire to work in Manhattan for the UN. So that might be the answer to this question. But what have been some major setbacks in your careers, and how have you really stood up to them?
So while I was in uniform, I deployed to Afghanistan, and that was really hard. Another setback probably would have been just constantly moving. I moved 15 times, mostly overseas in a 25-year period. So we were used to moving every 2 to 3 years. And it's hard to really establish those friendships. That's why they're really cherished, because the friends that I did make were in the military. You're turning and leaving them all the time. So that's always a setback. It's hard to find your footing when you're constantly on the go. What other setbacks? Yeah, I would say COVID really derailed my plans, but I anticipated a rough transition anyway, because anytime, and you can probably imagine that you're doing something for 25 years, that's your norm. And then to leave that world is it's a huge transition in itself, even without COVID thrown on top. So.
Nice. Well, that's very impactful. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
I've heard that you were in The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
So this should be a fun question. First, tell us a little bit about that and maybe your favorite parts.
Sure, yeah. I tend to forget about that experience, even though it was one of the highlights of my life. At the time, I was assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency in Washington, D.C., and I was working the China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Mongolia portfolio as a China analyst. And my husband's roommate's daughter had been on The Amazing Race. She was a Jets cheerleader. So I don't remember if it was the season before or 2 seasons before. We followed her journey, and we fell in love with the show because it really brings the world into your living room, and it's clean and it's fun and it's competitive. So we always followed the show. Wherever we were stationed, we always tried to tune in to some kind of American TV channel. This was before the internet, guys, or before cell phones for sure. But we followed the show and we loved it, and we followed her journey. And when her show finished airing, she had put something out saying they were looking for, they were doing a casting call. And my husband and I were like, oh, we would nail it. We'd be great, My husband speaks Arabic, Italian. He was a French major at West Point. His French is phenomenal. And he knows the Middle East like the back of his hand. In my experience in East Asia, we just felt like we covered the whole globe essentially. So we did. We applied. We applied as a couple, and they came back to us within just a few days and said, "Well, Tara, we're really interested in you, And Tony, not so much.
Oh.
I know, and he's in the background going, well, ask him when we can reapply, you know? And they explained that they were looking to change up the, just the way they cast it. They wanted to change up, you know, couples, like pre-existing couples, and do a stranger season. So Tony's like, they want you to audition, go for it. And I did. They flew me to Los Angeles, and it was fun. There was like a blind audition, and it lasted like 3 or 4 days, and came back and was kind of waiting. We were living in DC, like I said, and they called and said, can you get permission from the military to be excused for 3 weeks? And I had the leave time, and I remember going to the 2-star general's office at DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and explaining to him, the military actually has a whole group out in Hollywood that like manages military affairs whenever the military is involved in like anything on TV, or they did. I don't know what they're doing nowadays, but and the commander said, not yes, but hell yes, and we want you wearing like all your Army, whatever you can wear to represent. So yeah, off I went and circumnavigated the globe.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's awesome. Not many people get to experience that. It's
No.
really
Yeah.
cool.
My question is, what paths did you take in life to set you where you are today? And some of this stuff can be like I know you didn't go to college, but like any like positions, like military, like anything like that again?
Yeah, well, I had the influence of my parents. Like I mentioned, my father only went to school to the 7th grade, and he was the hardest working, smartest man I've ever met in my life. Just an incredible human being. So having that foundation was really special. The fact that I was brave enough to go to Brazil at 15 years old, I think, again, really was another pillar in my foundation to kind of set me up for success. And then, of course, once you join the military and you're in lockstep and you're doing all the things you need to do to be your best. There was an old slogan from the Army, be all you can be. It is true. I think they should bring that back. Because that's how I tell my children every day. Do your best, be your best. And that's all that you can do in life, right? Because anything short of that, you're not trying. But the military is a great way to kind of set your sights on excellence, because, for example, when you're a 2nd lieutenant, the next thing you want to be is a captain, right? And in order to become a captain, you have to check certain blocks and meet those expectations. And you're standing on your own merit. You know, you're sized up against other people in your category or your compatriots, but it's up to you. And if you're not checking those blocks and meeting those milestones and excelling, then you don't have the merit, right? So you're not going to advance. So those are some of the kind of benchmarks that help with success along the way. But going back to another question about the influences on who I had in my life, I think it's really important to seek out mentors. And then if you ever have the opportunity in life to be a mentor, that's also duly important. Like nowadays I have along the way as well, but just writing letters of recommendation for upstanding individuals, you know, some seniors at Brookfield High School right now, or other kids who have graduated, who have even finished college. There's one gentleman in Brookfield right now, he's looking to become an Army officer through our Army Officer Candidate School. So I just met with him last week. So it's important to like give back and be that mentor, because I've had great mentors in my life. So don't forget that. Find good mentors, but also be that mentor one day.
I like that. So we're just gonna wrap this up with a question that's close to home within the town. So one last thing, what is your favorite thing about Brookfield? This can be anything in the whole wide world.
I would have to say it's Lake Candlewood, because that's where I was born. It's where I learned to swim. It's where my brothers taught me to drive a boat. I have the best memories there. And now I've been able to make those memories with my own children. So.
I like that. That's awesome.
Mr. actually has one more question
Sorry.
for you.
Sure,
Huh?
anything.
This is like going back to like one of the earlier questions. I was gonna ask like what founded your or established your faith in your faith, and like was that reinforced through your experiences?
So my heritage is Italian. Most Italians are Catholic. In Brookfield, we used to have a little school that was open. It was called St. Joseph's School. You might be familiar with St. Joseph's Church. I was the second class in the 8th grade that got confirmed in the new church. So long before you guys were ever born, that church was not there. And we used to have mass in the basement. But everyone in my family went to St. Joseph's School. And that was basically, you know, the foundation. I was baptized in Danbury at St. Joe's in Danbury. And then every other sacrament except for the sacrament of marriage, which I was married at West Point at the Most Holy Trinity Catholic Chapel. Catholics are pretty much Catholic, right? So everything we do is very traditional, and it mostly stems from what your family did. So that's where my faith comes from.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming here and talking with us. That was a really insightful discussion. I'm really excited to get this up on the YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
I
you.
have
Horrible.
one more question
Sure.
for you.
Anything.
Like in general, what advice would you give any student right now? Like anybody?
I think so this is one thing you may or may not know about me, but I contributed a vignette to a book. So I'm a published author. I was selected from about 20 women around the globe, and we each spoke about female leadership. So, or for the title of the book is The Future Female Leader. And my vignette is all about the things that I would like to instill in my own daughter or any young woman or man for that matter, my own sons, in fact. And I talk about fearlessness, fortitude, and friendships in a global world. And for me, those are the three things that are really the most important. Like we talked about, you have to maintain those relationships, right? Like make those friends. There's going to be people that you don't like, but you still have to work with them and be civil and network, right? And then having fortitude, I mentioned earlier, just being brave. Like no matter what it is, hold your head up high and go after it and be brave. And then, what was the third thing I said? Fearlessness, fortitude, and friendships. So
Yeah.
the fortitude, which essentially means like working hard and just doing your best and excelling no matter what you do.